Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining the Bay Area Content Marketing Meetup on Zoom. Sorry, I was just finding some noise. Really fortunate today to have the team from Okta. They're going to talk about how they pivoted from in-person events to virtual events. They recently had a highly successful virtual event, which I'm sure they'll talk about. Without further ado, Liz, why don't you kick things off and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here. I met Dennis. Some of you may have heard us chatting as we were waiting to start. I met Dennis at a conference last month where I keynoted. It was Event Geeks Reboot Conference. It was a really awesome, engaging event for event professionals in a time when we all really needed it. And when he asked me to chat more and dive a little deeper into our pivot, Okta's pivot from in-person to virtual events, I thought it would be great to bring some of my peers who are in the trenches with me. It was really intense mid-quarter pivot for us. Our quarter starts in February, so March 16th, when shelter in place happened here in California, we made the hard decision to take everything virtual, and the team just did a phenomenal job. So we're going to share a little bit about what we did, some of our learnings from that. And I'm excited to hear all the different perspectives from my peers today as well, and from you. So hopefully we can have a discussion after this and hear from some of you what your learnings have been. And really, we all welcome the dialogue. So I will have everyone introduce themselves, but I'll start. I'm Liz Kokoska. I head up the North America demand gen team at Okta, which includes our regional and ABM marketing teams that are really sales focused, and as well as our sales development org, and kind of consider ourselves the pipe gen army at Okta in the Americas. And with that, I will turn it over to Alyssa.
Hi there, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Alyssa Smrekar, and I have the wonderful opportunity to work on corporate marketing. And at Okta, that includes our web, advertising, corporate events, and customer marketing programs. And we're really excited to be here today to tell you a little bit more about our pivot for Octane, our annual conference. Next up, we've got Sarah.
Mute. I'm Sarah Shaheen, Director of Corporate Events at Okta, and my team leads up some of the largest events here at Okta, which includes Octane, our annual user conference, as well as some of our internal events like Sales Kickoff, Company Kickoff, as well as very targeted executive events as well. So I'm excited to tell you some of the things we learned during Octane 20.
And I'm Kristi Evans. I'm the Director of Regional Marketing here at Okta. My team is responsible for executing demand gen programs in the regions. We support our sales team, so a little bit smaller tier programs than what Sarah's team does, but very much volume based, and a lot of programs throughout the quarter. So excited to take you through some of the learnings.
Great. And with that, we'll pass it back to Sarah to dive into Octane.
Yeah, I'll do a quick overview for Octane. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Octane is our annual customer conference. We've been hosting it since about 2013, and this year we were full steam ahead in terms of planning our conference to be in April in Moscone in San Francisco. We were expecting around 6,000 people. And so, working on all the different event aspects in terms of registration and keynotes and breakouts and sponsorships, and really getting excited to bring everyone together. Of course, as we were starting to really take a look at the news and everything going on with COVID-19, it became clear that we were no longer going to be able to responsibly host a conference and bring people together in person. So we made the decision on March 2nd to take it completely virtual, to cancel the in-person components of the conference. And that gave us pretty much exactly 4 weeks to be able to pivot. So that included every program we had in person, we wanted to try to keep and maintain in some form or fashion for virtual. And so some of the learnings we'll be talking through is around that. And on the next slide, you can kind of see an example of what the environment looked like. And Sarah can tell a little bit more about how the team made this all happen within that short time frame.
Yeah, so
Sarah and Alyssa, can I chime in too? I'd have to say Alyssa and Sarah and their teams led the charge on us going virtual. So we, the regional marketing team was really following suit. So it's appropriate that they go first here in this presentation too, because they were the ones that were paving the path for all of us. So.
Well, thanks, Liz. And yes, this is the conference lobby for Octane 20. And Alyssa mentioned that our target for the in-person event was 6,000 people, and we had over 20,000 people register for the virtual event. So, we were able to really have a much broader reach. And you can see that this conference lobby doesn't look much different than what you'd see at an in-person event, and that was intentional. As Alyssa said, we wanted to incorporate everything we possibly could, everything that people were expecting at the in-person event into this virtual experience. And that meant all the keynotes, even our paid guest keynotes, were happy to participate in this. We had 75 breakout sessions. We had 37 sponsors. We even were able to incorporate the passport program, to keep people engaged throughout the event, as well as the Okta store. And the key to doing this is during the in-person event, during the planning, we already had program leads for each area. So we had someone that was managing the breakouts. We had someone that was managing sponsors. We had someone managing the production, registration, all those things. And the key to this is that those program leads remained the program leads, and it was their responsibility to maintain ownership and figure out how to translate that to virtual. And that is really the key to this, is that everyone maintained ownership, and we still had a daily, if not weekly, stand-up call to get through all these items, but everyone did their piece. And I think that was the key. We kind of had this divide and conquer mentality. So with that, I'll transition it over to Kristi to talk a little bit more about regional marketing.
Thanks, Sarah. So you heard a bit about how we transitioned Octane to a virtual conference, and coming off the heels of that decision, Okta then decided to have all of our hosted and sponsored events virtual for the rest of the calendar year. And I remember this moment very vividly. I remember asking our SVP of Demand Gen, so what about the 5 events taking place tomorrow? What do I do about those? So on the next slide, you'll see, this pivot was really a tremendous feat for a regional marketing team that typically carries out close to 150 events per quarter. So soon after that decision was made, we had to cancel or opt out of 48 live events. We had another 48 that were pushed out or postponed due to COVID. We were able to recoup and pivot 25 of our events to a virtual format, and then we added 72 more virtual events to replace what was lost. So during this time, we really, yielded some positive results, but we got a lot of good learnings along the way, and we'll walk you through some of those now.
Yeah, thanks, Kristi. So Kristi and team it felt like overnight and magically in their sleep within a 2-week period did this. And I don't have all the secrets of how they did it. So, but it's pretty incredible. And we're going to go through some of the learnings through it. It didn't all go perfectly. But with that, let me dive into the first point of pivoting, which was setting your event strategy. We've quickly realized that zip codes no longer mattered. So we started to think about time zones. And if we used to need to do an event for everyone based in Atlanta or everyone based in, let's say even another geo, in a city in another geo, we are now looking more at time zones. And how can we how do we promote, and do we promote this more broadly across all the time zones, or do we still keep it more intimate? And then second, do we want it to be more complex, multi-track, or one track, something like this, where we're having more of a conversation, you can see everyone's faces on Zoom, or do we want to just have it be information sharing and multi-track? And then finally, the conversational versus webinar. So again, do we have everyone where they can speak up, and we can see faces, we can hear from each other, and do we want to have a curated audience for this, or do we just open it up to everyone? Alyssa is going to jump into more about how we give content more legs also in a future point. But how do you record it and give more legs?
So the next piece is just be thoughtful about the vendors and the technology you choose. And the first piece is choose the right technology. So I've been calling virtual platforms the new venue search. So, which event planners are used to doing venue searches, but we're not used to very complicated technology like we're looking at for virtual platforms. So definitely involve marketing operations as well as your technology teams to ask the right questions that as marketers or event planners, we may not always think of. And also think about what vendors are you already using that can offer this option for you or offer the technology that you need. For us, we had already used, we'd done a virtual summit previously, so we were able to take advantage of that relationship and reuse that vendor that we already had set up in our procurement system. And the other piece when choosing the right technology is who are you already working with that maybe can refer you to someone? They already know your business needs. They know, how you do business, what's important to you. So they're probably, so take advantage of those relationships because I think that they could probably help you, point you in the right direction. And the other piece is choose creative vendors. I think this is more important than ever right now, just in delivering this content in a way that's exciting and engaging for people. So challenge your vendors to be creative and ask the right questions and just, make the event experience memorable. And finally, partner with third parties. Are there already people or organizations that are doing an event that maybe you can tag onto, maybe you can sponsor it, and who's pivoting quickly that you can, again, create a relationship with and do something together. And I'll let Liz and Kristi add anything else, maybe from a regional standpoint as well, if they want.
That it was so important because we had to pivot so quickly to find the vendors that could move as quickly as we were moving, and some couldn't keep up. I know we've had quite a few just cancel, so finding those that can be creative was key for us in the success we had last quarter. Kristi, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I would agree. I think, finding vendors that are going to be in the trenches with you and figuring out, what's going to, be the best solution and the best go forward motion. So that was, really key. And, we had to say goodbye to some vendors, and that's okay. But it really allowed us to focus on the ones who were going to, help us get to where we needed to go.
Also comment on the technology piece. So for the corporate events team, they needed a much more robust technology for Octane. And for us, Zoom worked just fine. So we've leveraged Zoom for most of our regional programs. And Zoom's definitely having to catch up, but we have had zero issues. And we have an internal AV team we've leveraged to help us produce the regional programs.
Great. So I think we can all agree, part of the appeal of live events is the networking and interaction that comes with them. When we decided to make this transition to virtual only, it was important for us to find ways to facilitate that interaction and collaboration that Okta customers and prospects came to expect from us. So first step to increasing interaction virtually is to have your video on. I know this seems like a no-brainer, but it really was key for us to drive engagement amongst our attendees. Within all of our pre-event communications and the calendar invites and reminder emails, we prompt our registrants to join with their cameras on. And some virtual events, we also have our moderators facilitate the group through introductions rather than just diving into the content from the onset. And this has really been a great way for us to keep people engaged and talking early. Second takeaway for driving interaction, I'd say, is really dependent on the audience you're trying to target. So it's important to understand how they traditionally choose to interact. Are they more of a social group? Are they more technical, C-level audience? For us, clearly scoping our target audience, helped us tailor a format of the virtual event to drive the most engagement out of them. So one example, we wanted C-levels from our top prospects to get FaceTime with our CEO, Todd McKinnon. We hosted an intimate cooking class with 3 Michelin star chef Dominique Kren. We kept the group small intentionally and allowed the audience to include their partners and families in the event. This really allowed for more of an organic and intimate conversation and an opportunity for our prospects to interact on a one-on-one basis. On the opposite end of the spectrum, when developing a workshop series for our developer audience, we found that they really wanted more of a webinar type of format that allowed them to digest the content. To set it apart, we offered up gift cards to help them order lunch during the workshop, and we opened up the Q&A chat at the beginning of the webinar and had them type out where they ordered lunch. So again, seems simple and easy, but a great way to get them to start to engage personally. Another way to drive interaction is to include breakouts in your agenda. this probably lends itself to a larger audience, but where you can group attendees by title, topic, or industry, and pulling those attendees into smaller breakout groups really allows individuals, to probably feel more comfortable and want to collaborate and speak up. And then when the larger group reconvenes, we have the breakout sort of do a round robin and present whatever they talked about. So it's a great way to get people to engage. If you plan to have a live Q&A as part of the agenda, we found that having someone internally with a few seed questions was really key. And our first virtual events, we stumbled when we opened up the Q&A line to silence. So what we started to do to combat this was to have someone from our team log in as an attendee. And when we came up to the live Q&A, if there was silence, they would lead with those seed questions. And once a few questions were posed, we found that others were really more comfortable in speaking up. We've also facilitated some Q&A through chat functions at Octane. And I think on the next slide, Alyssa will share a little bit how they did that.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Kristi. So as the team has mentioned earlier, right now with all these events being virtual, we really have a great opportunity, I think, as event managers to think about becoming content producers. We put so much work and effort into building all this content. And so what we've started to really do across the team for all of our events is maximize those programs by recording it and then putting it on our website and sharing that out after. I think one of the things right now that we're really seeing across the event world is that certain time that we might think is the right time to host the event might not work for our attendees, but they can still take advantage of the information by being able to access that recording afterwards. So we're really starting to do this across the board for whether it's our large events like Octane, the example you see here, and also some of the more intimate events, because all of those different, presentations and roundtable and conversations are really valuable. And so we want to make sure that even if somebody can't attend live, they can check it out later. And again, also doing pre-recording gives you a little bit of opportunity to control the content in case you have any, internet issues, somebody wants to pause what they say and go back and try it again. It really makes the presenters also feel a little bit more comfortable when they know that there's that ability to edit later. The second thing for us when it comes to content is don't do it alone. All organizations out there are thinking about how to get their message out there. And so we've relied and partnered really closely with our partners to be able to tell our story. One recent example was right as, we were transitioning to this remote work world, is we got with our partners at Box and Slack and Zoom and said, let's get our, CIOs and respective IT leaders on a call and just talk about how we're navigating this transition. And yes, we talked a little bit about how our products can help as well, but it was really more about getting our thought leaders out there. Another big area for us is we have long wanted to leverage our customers to help tell our story. I'm sure many of you do the same. It's great when you can have somebody who's actually using your product talk about what they're doing and the challenges that they're facing and how they're solving it. And so we've been really focusing right now in this virtual world is we can do quick customer case studies by having them join a Zoom, and we can record it over the course of 20 to 30 minutes versus when I think typically you're creating customer case studies, you have to figure out what day you're going to go, you're going to get a flight, are they going to come to you, do you try to align it all with your conference? And so now what we're seeing is we can kind of do these quick wins, as we're calling it, quick win pieces of content. It's very easy to just ask the customer, hey, will you do a quick conversation with our co-founder about how you're using Okta? And so we started to do that at the company All Hands and then also in additional formats. So really thinking about like that snackable bite-sized content with folks like partners and customers has been a big area for us. And then the third thing for us is also in terms of content is, you want to make it interesting and exciting. And that sometimes includes executives and celebrities. So one area for us is that we have now this great opportunity to get our executives to do lots of different things, sometimes on the same day. They can join a customer advisory board with EMEA customers and then a sales meeting with New York prospects, and then do a team all hands that afternoon with the West Coast teams. So we're no longer limited, again, as the teams mentioned, we're no longer limited by zip codes and area codes and travel. And you can really take advantage of the fact that you have great executives who I'm sure are ready and willing to participate in these types of programs. And what we've also done lately is kind of expand our bench of executive speakers and working with more of these leaders across the company to be our spokespeople. And then this is our dear friend, Amy Poehler there. So at Octane, we always try to have guest speakers join us for keynotes. And what we've been able to do is we now have, I think, a bigger opportunity, and the team's done such a great job of getting celebrity speakers to join us for not only those keynotes, but also for roundtables. Executives want to be able to network and talk directly to an athlete. So one really cool thing that I know the regional team did was, notice that the Michael Jordan TV show The Last Dance was happening and got an interview with Scottie Pippen the exact same week that the Scottie Pippen episodes were going live. So, got to like really drive a lot of excitement around those celebrities. So right now we're definitely leaning into that, is leveraging these types of guests to help help inspire and delight our customers. And it's been a really fun way that we've been able to extend the virtual events. And that's it for content.
Great.
So, in terms of making it meaningful, one thing we had to ask ourselves is, why are we doing this event? And what's the value we're bringing to our customers and prospects? Early on in some of our team brainstorms, we had really great virtual event ideas and some outlandish ideas. And we had to ask ourselves again, what's the value and content we're really trying to provide? Or is it just an experience that we're trying to do for the sake of the experience? So, when evaluating what to do, you really want to host something that's fun and sets us apart. But at the end of the day, we're a technology company and we need to make sure that we're also delivering some value and not just fun.
And the other piece is make it personal. And this is one of my favorite pictures from Octane is, Todd, our CEO, welcomed us into his home, which is an experience that would have never been able to recreate at Moscone or any other convention center. So I just love that piece of this. And it's a great opportunity with these virtual events to really, bring the speakers into, or allowing us to go into the speakers' homes virtually. And also, I loved that we had a lot of social interaction during Octane 20, and our customers invited us into their homes, our attendees. Everyone was tweeting selfies of themselves with their at-home setup and how they were participating in Octane 20. So even though we were not able to be together, it felt like we were together, and it was just a very unique experience. And I know some of the things that Kristi's team has done too with the smaller events is Zoom background contests, which I think makes it very fun and personal. And then also just sending goodies in advance of meetings. Even Liz talked about another company sending cocktails in advance. So just adding that personal touch is just really unique.
Anybody else getting a lot of cocktail mixes and wine in the mail right now? It's a popular event. And then the last for us, it was really important, especially last quarter, to have a give back component. In lieu of swag, we opted to give money to Okta for Good's COVID Relief Fund, which our foundation branch launched last quarter, right after, as a response to everything going on in the world. And so in every event, at our executive briefings, at our regional events, we had a slide that said, in lieu of swag, we were donating to Okta for Good's COVID Relief Fund. There's other ways to do this as well, whether it's in the swag, making the swag have meaning. You buy a water bottle and water is given to someone in need, etc. We always try to bring that in, and we find that our attendees are really responsive to that, especially in times like this. So with that, we wanted to open it up. I know we're leaving very little if everyone has to jump at 12:30 for discussion, but if anyone wants to chime in, ask questions live, I know we're answering a bunch here in the chat. I really appreciate the time, Dennis. It was fun for the four of us to collaborate and gather our learnings, and there's a lot more. We tried to keep it, we could have gone on probably, but hopefully this was helpful for everyone.
Yeah, that was great. Well done, everyone. You've been getting a lot of compliments in the chat. I think it's just such a great set of advice for folks considering virtual. I know there's been some discussion in the chat. If anyone wants to ask a question now, either in the chat or on audio, feel free to do so.
I see one question here around sponsorship, which I think maybe was related to Octane. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about how we pivoted for the sponsorships?
Yes. So, and I don't see the question, but we did have a lot of sponsors signed up, and we reached out to all of them, just letting them know. We refunded, because obviously there was a big difference between an in-person and virtual, but we did come up with 2 tiers of sponsorship. The main difference was the higher level tier included a speaking session, but our partners were thrilled with the results they got. There was a lot of traffic in the virtual partner pavilion, and to the point that some sponsors even needed to bring in more marketing resources to field all the questions. So we had, it was a virtual chat, so you could, text chat at the booth, and it was overwhelmingly popular.
I also just added, Sarah did a blog about Octane. Alyssa also had an article in Inc. magazine around the pivot. I've included my keynote from Event Geek and our CEO's tweet storm, which was really interesting, gives a lot of insight into what it was like to plan. And then we've also decided to put all of our events on okta.com events page, which we hadn't done in the past because they weren't all relevant for anyone that would be going to the website. But now they're much more relevant given the virtual nature of them. So I added those to the chat if you want to take advantage of them. Maybe, Dennis, I don't know if you have a comm that goes out after this, if you'd like to include them.
Yes, I will. Thank you for all those resources. I'll put them together and share them on our meetup page, so folks who either couldn't copy and paste or were not able to attend will have access to them. Stanny just commented that she can still see a billboard for Octane 2020 in San Francisco. I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, one of
but
the
that's
fun things.
interesting.
Yeah, one of the things that happened as we were gearing up for Octanes, we had a billboard promoting the San Francisco version of the event. We of course flipped to virtual, so then we actually we updated the billboard. I think it was like that first week of March, got some new creative and updated it, so it changed the whole message to Octane Live. Join us for a free virtual event. And then yes, I will admit that about 4 weeks ago, drove one of the few times I've left the city, drove back in and then saw, oh, it's still there. But as of this past Sunday, it is officially down. Somebody else has taken our spot now.
Okay.
There was one question in here around
sprinkle in.
Yeah, I saw one question here around registration, and we can talk about it for Octane specifically. I mean, we made the decision that because we were going virtual, we had this opportunity to reach a lot more people, and all the effort and time was already going into the content. So let's make it available for everybody. This didn't feel like the time that we wanted to be like charging people for the content. We want people to consume our content, so make it available, open it up. So we refunded all of our paid conference attendees because, they're not coming, getting the food and getting the experiences. Refunded everybody for their tickets, made the whole conference free and virtual. And then, of course, that did open up that opportunity. As Sarah mentioned, we had over 20,000 people sign up. So definitely gave us the ability to reach more people in different regions earlier in the funnel, a ton of net new names, which was really great for us. So we typically don't think of Octane as a net new driver. Usually it's about acceleration, but we were able to kind of get some more net new names in the database too. So definitely the goal and the results shift as you move to virtual, and it's just about keeping those in mind as you make that transition. I don't know if you guys on the regional side, are you seeing the same thing? Like more people are signing up, but maybe less attending?
We actually see the opposite, but the regional events I think are a little bit smaller in nature, right? They're traditionally around 40 to 75 people, but with some of the third-party sponsorships that used to be in person and now have transitioned to virtual, we're actually seeing lower attrition rates, which is really good. We've recommended to some of those vendors you should always have a virtual option, and I think that's just purely to people not having to travel and leave their home, right? That they're a little bit more inclined sometimes to jump on those Zoom and those webinars.
Sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I was actually moving on Stanny's question around, were there specific tools or methods used to collect leads? So the beauty of virtual is, as someone that's spent several years trying to, figure out RFID tracking and where do we do it and all those things, the beauty of virtual is that you can see what people are doing. And so I think it's just important to have those conversations if you're looking at a virtual platform to tell them upfront what you want to track so that they can build that in as you build it out, if that's more for a conference. And then, just working with marketing ops to make sure that the data flows where it needs to go.
And I can add to that on the sales development side. So our SDRs are following up on all the leads. We are providing them with the intel of what those accounts are doing, what sessions they're attending, so they can have a thoughtful follow-up. It's not just, hey, you attended Octane. It's, oh, I see you, looked into XYZ solution session, and it's been really helpful in the follow-up to have the really detailed intel into their experience at Octane. Did we answer the question?
The other thing I found is the chats as well. So at a physical conference, you have you collect a business card and you try to write down notes on the back of the card what you talked about. In a virtual event, you have the chat transcripts for the private conversations between attendees and your staffers. So it's pretty awesome.
Did we answer the question about sponsorships? The pricing sponsorships? Did that get answered? Okay.
Yeah, with the 2 tiers, we did like a gold and a platinum. Yeah.
There was another question from Stanny about if you wanted to share what attendance rate you had, because she knows that it's sometimes easy to not attend a virtual event.
Yeah, we, I mean, in the regional side, we're seeing less attrition. So we're seeing more engagement. And then Alyssa, how did you describe it on the Octane side?
We had, Sarah, do you want to go ahead?
No, I was just going to say we had about 50%, but I think that is pretty much in line with that type of event.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things also is that we had the conference experience in the Intrado platform. As we talked about, we also live streamed the keynote on our website and via social media platforms. So we were able to reach even thousands more people that way. Maybe they didn't make it all the way into the conference for the full experience, but they were able to watch that as well.
The actual discount for virtual, I don't have an answer on that. Was it 50%? I don't know. It was less. It's less for virtual.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, it's a significant change. There's a lot of the hard costs. So the reason you charge so much for a sponsorship typically is because there are a lot of the hard costs with the booths and the lead scanners and the labor. And so we knew that we can't like how do you really justify the cost? And so we came up with the packages for our sponsors accordingly.
And for Octane, we used Intrado was the technology. And for regional events, we're using Zoom right now. We are exploring other technologies right now. We're in an RFP process.
And for the live streaming piece, we did it via LinkedIn Live, as well as a stream from our homepage.
Mm.
There was a question around best practice guidelines for the speakers. Alyssa can probably speak to this for the keynotes at Octane. On the regional side, I would say, it's important for us to prep a Q&A doc with whatever executive is speaking or leading that event on the Okta side, and then providing questions to the talent or the celebrity beforehand. I would also add that, we've, like with Dominique Crenn and Scottie Pippen, for example, like we had to schedule 2 calls prior to the actual live event to make sure they knew how to turn Zoom on, they knew how to turn their camera on, that they had the right lighting. So it's good to work out those kinks beforehand and not leave it up to the day of and assuming that they'll be able to handle all that functionality.
Yeah, the production, I would say don't underestimate the production pieces. We would have calls set up to like go through the Q&A and practice, but you really do spend a good amount of time saying, actually, like, I can see that sweatshirt over your shoulder, or the lighting's not quite right, or whatever it might be. So, you want it to, if you want it to look as professional as possible, it's important to invest that time up front. And then we always do speaker coaching for our breakout sessions as well. So we just transition the speaker coaches to be able to help folks deliver their presentations virtually as well.
Which is a whole different experience, having to figure out how to engage over this little box that we're sitting in here. So. And we didn't attend other virtual conference on the regional side. I mean, we had to move really quickly, but now I've personally attended a variety of roundtables, and internally we're sharing best practices across our team of what we like about those. We've also received a ton of recommendations from our sales team of great ideas that we should execute on. So, some better than others, but, we're really leveraging our team and the creativity across the org to continue to innovate.
Yeah, and on the Octane side, similarly to what Liz said, there wasn't much time to be able to attend any other virtual conferences between the time that we made that decision. So, but we're doing a big effort right now. I think as we all are, we're attending as many as possible, seeing what things are working well, what things aren't working well, learning best practices from others. So I think it'll be an interesting, next 6 months for sure for all event leaders of what worked 2 months ago might not work in another 3 months. And maybe everyone will be sick of whatever it is that, the newest thing. So we'll always be looking to be innovating.
I know I had some Harvard MBAs reach out to me and they wanted me to check out their concept for a virtual event platform. So I think there's a lot of people coming up with what the next best thing is. Also, I'm really excited to see what they come up with, but that's, it's going to be, super interesting to Alyssa's point, what comes forward in the next 6 months. And I think we're going to keep virtual as part of our plan going forward. To your point, your question, Jeff, especially on the regional side, there'll always be a component where people can participate virtually.
Yeah, I think it becomes a hybrid approach. But it will be interesting to see what people, I do think there's always room for in-person events. I think that will definitely always stay and will come back, but it'll be interesting just to see, how it changes.
Yeah, I have a similar thought for this meetup group. I don't think we'll ever stop doing these sorts of Zoom meetings during the afternoon. When it's safe to get back together, probably in smaller groups in person, we'll probably look at that, but I think we've also moved virtual.
Internally, I know our leadership team at Okta, we've decided ops reviews and our larger leadership meetings that we have monthly will all be virtual, or at least everyone will be on Zoom, as opposed to a bunch of people in a conference room and a few people on Zoom. With conversation is much more level playing field. So I am curious to see when we go back to a live event format, how we are going to make sure people online feel a part of and can still hear everything and be engaged.
All right, folks, any more questions? Feel free to use the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you want to ask it.
Anyone else have anything outside of what we shared that you think I would love to hear other best practices.
Is anyone out there anyone in the audience planned a virtual event this year? Feel free to share what you did.
Trying.
Oh, hey, Greg.
So I've talked to InExpo or Intrado, and it's just, for somebody who's trying to start with like no attendees, it's almost impossible for, to get in with their price. They used to have a really, a low price entry startup kind of thing, but they kind of got rid of that when COVID hit. So it's like the minimum entry is 60 grand. And so I'm like searching for other cheaper ways to get stuff done. Open to ideas.
And you're wanting to make it multi-track breakouts, and like it's more complex than just a Zoom webinar.
It might be just a Zoom to start with. But Zoom doesn't scale, right? That's a chat. It's not really a broadcast. It's good for chatting like we're doing now, but in terms of broadcasting.
You can do webinars. So you can do webinars, and then you can have people break out from that into smaller groups. There is a tool within Zoom to be able to do that. We use that for our all hands at Okta, and we've used, depending on the size of the regional event, we're using either the webinar or this format. More of the
good to know.
And Craig, what's good about the webinar piece is that you allow who becomes a panelist. So everyone's muted from the very beginning. You don't have to worry about people speaking, and then you can let people into the panelist if you want them to speak.
Cool, thank you.
So there was a question from Julie about you were mentioning you live streamed some of your virtual events to your website. She's asking which was the highest quality streaming for a live event.
You mean like
Julie, Zoom? Are you asking about the provider?
Hi, yes.
Hi.
Sorry, we do a film festival. It's never been online. It was localized. And the beauty of our film, it's a film forum because it's just 3 days, one film per day. But the beauty of it is that we get great speakers. We get the filmmakers, and we come and they do a panel discussion, and then afterwards we do a Q&A. So we've decided to stream this online this year, 1 day, 3 shorts, with the filmmakers, we were going to do it pre-recorded, but our board decided pre-recorded would sort of lose the beauty of what we're about and our standards. So we're gonna stream it. We're gonna try to stream it live.
We've used Sonic Foundry for our keynotes in the past for Octane. So like if there's people on the keynote stage, it's live, it's at the event, and then we've used Sonic Foundry to stream that out. And it's always been a very high quality.
That's great.
For us.
Okay, thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah, no problem. And we use them to this year live stream the pre-recorded keynotes on our website.
Okay. We don't want to lose the Q&A aspect at the end. I think people enjoy getting their questions answered, and hearing their own voice, of course, and maybe even seeing themselves. But of course, we would go just filmmaker, and then hopefully, I don't know. The chats are even great, but it's definitely a distraction to read chats while you're trying to listen and watch.
Yeah, we've been doing it actually, as I think Liz was kind of talking about, like even for our internal meetings now. This past week, we had this big quarterly ops review, and then we actually used Slack during that to have all these conversations. And I will totally admit, at first I was worried like it's going to be so distracting, but then what was productive is, I think a lot of times you have these meetings where you come up with all these like actions and conversations, but then you have to like wait for somebody to remember to follow up later. And so this was like, we were actually getting things done and like sharing the links and giving the feedback during it. And then it was cool because it was in our own Slack, so it stayed there. So like you didn't lose it off the Zoom once you close the window or anything like that. So
that's great. It
was kind of a new, I think, like best practice that we're thinking about, at least for internal meetings, and also considering it for external stuff too.
The other thing, Julie, is Simulive. So we do a lot of Simulive where, we either, if we're repurposing content, so you run the recording, but then you have the experts on there to answer the questions live. So that's another possible. It could feel more intimate still because you have the people, but you could then be sure that the recording is not going to have bandwidth problems or.
Yeah, I think you can almost fool people, Julie, with because a lot of people thought Octane, like all of our things were pre-recorded, and a lot of people thought it was live just because it did, come up so well. So I think maybe you could convince your team to do the pre-recorded version and then come on live for Q&A. But yeah, you're right. You do run a risk with bandwidth issues. If there's any problem, people aren't going to be able to see it, or if there's a bandwidth problem where they're recording from or where they're presenting from.
We also did it for our Investor Day. Actually, we pre-recorded all the content and then we flipped to the live Q&A. And we even said, it's okay to say like, hey, we recorded this content a couple days ago. We had some great conversations. We're excited to share it with you today. And at the end, we're going to have the executives, the speakers, the filmmakers, the producers here live to answer any questions. Like, I think it's okay to just say, this is pre-recorded, but we also get live. So it's like you get the best of both worlds.
Right. And that was with Sonic Foundry. Is that what you said?
We didn't do that specifically through Sonic Foundry. We did our Investor Day through Zoom. So we pre-recorded, then we played it through Zoom, but it wasn't a high, it was a smaller audience. So we weren't, Sonic Foundry is what we use to live stream our keynotes though. Okay.
Thank you all for taking the time.
When you did the pre-recording through Zoom, did you have to do anything to ensure that the video played through correctly? I've been on calls where people try to play music or do something and it's very shaky. And it's doesn't have the quality where you that we all are used to because we're looking at things on screens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we tested it out, plenty of times in advance, and for that one, for this specific example for the Investor Day, it was so important that we had our own Okta AV team on board to help make it successful. And I know that he went to the office because he was able to, and so he played it from there just to make sure it was as low risk as possible. And he had his roommates.
So it was really about the connection.
Yeah, we just wanted to remove all risk.
Than anything else, yeah. I know I've had people talk about if you're doing something on a smaller scale, if you turn your hotspot on your phone, then if stuff goes down, you can quickly pivot to your hotspot and don't lose too much. But it does seem we're all being quite forgiving. You can see I'm getting my background set up here. I'm not quite ready yet.
Well, and I think that is definitely the thing, is the human element of these virtual events. And, I will say, I think because like we were doing a lot of these so fast, I think we even got a little bit more like empathy and understanding, you know, of like, hey, yeah, like the internet went out, so we're gonna try that one more time. You know, I think that like we, you know, your guys are all now in my house, and I'm in all of your houses, and like it's okay. So I think people are more forgiving and more understanding that they get it. Like somebody's gonna say something in the background or something doesn't look perfect. Like it's not the biggest concern that we have.
I see a question here from Cecily about how much conversation took place. A ton. It's just been, I think people almost are so used to Slack or the chats. And so being able to just do that at an event and not feel like you have to interrupt or cut someone off to get your question in, you can just put it and know it's going to be answered when it's answered. It seems that it's been a really well-received part of these events. And then others can see the answer to those questions real time and it's in writing. Mm-hmm. Carla Clark and I used to work together. I saw you came off of mute. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I had a question about how long people attended your event for. Like, did they stay the whole time, or did they kind of pop in and pop out?
For Octane, we had a good amount of people, a substantial amount of people that really stayed the whole 2 days. I was surprised at the end of even day 2, you know, thousands of people were still on. So people really did stick around. I do wonder, to Alyssa's point, as time goes on, if people their appetite for that will shorten. You know, we were lucky we were early on when this is happening, and people, I think, will get fatigued from it. But we had a lot of people on the whole time.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Carla.
Good to see you too, Liz.
Yeah, on the regional side, we don't really have metrics. I don't believe we've tracked metrics on that. It'd be an interesting metric to track. I haven't looked at drop-off rates on the webinars, on the Zoom calls. Kristi, maybe we should look at that.
The webinars we do, we kind of try to keep them to about 45 minutes. We haven't tried a full virtual event yet. It's always just been product-focused webinars. And I'm trying to get the rest of the team to understand that there is an appetite for a longer event. People might actually, sign on for something with when the content changes versus one long conversation about one product. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's harder to get people who are used to a certain thing to get beyond what they're used to. Because they're saying, well, we shouldn't do a virtual event because people don't have an attention span longer than 45 minutes. So trying to see how that really works out.
Yeah, I think you get the people that are interested in the thing at the time, right? So I know I've logged into things, and even on Event Geeks, I couldn't attend the entire day, but I logged into the sessions I really wanted to hear, and I knew I would be able to listen to the recordings later. So, but then you get all those metrics of who listened to what recording and or what attended live, and it has legs, right? That content lives on, so you can use that to convince.
Thank you.
All right, any last questions? This is your last opportunity.
This was fun. Appreciate you having us, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Liz and Kristi, Sarah, and Alyssa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Best of luck, everyone, with all of your programs and events.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
That's for sure.
That's right.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
See you, Okta team.
Hey, thanks, Dennis.